So, as a Dark Souls and Bloodborne aficionado, I like to try and convince as many people as I can to pick up and play these games because, to be honest, there's not very much like it out there. There's a lot of games that try and emulate that. There's a few games that I'm sure people can think of that really emulated the Dark Souls formula, but nothing quite captures the atmosphere. And I think that's really special, especially for lapsed gamers and stuff. If you haven't played games in a while, though, sometimes it's a little bit hard.
Especially just for a game just like Dark Souls.
Yeah.
If you're going to be starting with this, you're going to not be having, I guess, a great time because there is nothing really like this compared to a lot of other games. You're not going to have the same skills come across from, I guess, even like a Dynasty Warriors or something like that.
If you've played a lot of older style of games, I'm talking about Nintendo hard games back when those games were difficult, then you might have the reaction times. But I guess it's something that you have to readapt and relearn, and it's skills that you probably haven't flexed in a while. So considering that, we've decided to give you guys a couple of tips. Hopefully that gets you into the game a lot quicker. Unlike Bloodborne, there isn't a big scary area at the start with 30 guys. So you're not really, I guess, getting used to dodging and really hard stuff. So there's a lot you can do in the beginning of Dark Souls 2, and Dark Souls 3 to help you along the way. So in Dark Souls 3, I figured maybe a few tips and hints to sort of get people along the way without really giving away too much.
Yeah.
5 hints. All right. So first off, I guess the big thing is explore. It's one of those games where the stages become so familiar to you because you do die a lot. Even when I'm playing a game that I've played a lot of, Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, I'll still die unexpectedly when I'm starting a new game. And the best thing is knowing where those items that I want are. Certain classes benefit from having certain items, like there are certain weapons, dexterity-based weapons, strength-based weapons, magic weapons, that are littered throughout the opening areas.
And I guess one of the things that you just need to get into is just going everywhere. You always got to check your corners. You always got to check.
Roll through barrels.
Yeah, one thing. Roll
through the barrels. Don't slash them. Roll through them.
Yeah. But all through other things like, small bits of wall that are falling off that you maybe be able to fall down to another ledge or something. Just have a look around. Just like, I guess, even you can try falling down that one little bit there that may look like you might be falling too down.
It makes no sense. Sometimes you'll be like, I'm going to lose health if I fall down there. But there might be an item there.
And you know what? It could be the best item
probably
in the game.
Is, yeah. And in some cases, a lot of the things they try and do is put enemies at spots where you're supposed to look. So in the early areas, you'll notice a lot of guys are kneeling down and praying.
Yeah.
Whereas there's one guy, you'll see him off in the corner. He looks like he's just doing nothing, but he'll come racing after at you. If you go to those sorts of areas, usually there's a staircase or a chest or something hidden. So if you look around to where the enemies are as well, that can sometimes be a good tip to find hidden stuff. And there's a lot of good stuff, which brings me to my next point. Try everything out. So in the early areas, as opposed to the previous Souls games, I didn't feel like there was a lot of variety. Whereas with Dark Souls 3, there's a lot of different weapons that you can find within the first couple of hours.
And even with those new weapons, there's so much more you can actually do with those weapons because each one has a different weapon skill. Weapon skills can differ from more, I guess, actual attacks from
the stanced weapons.
Weapons, which adds different animations to your attack, different properties even to your attacks. You can actually break through shields, break through their armor, break through anything that they could be doing in the moment. There's other things that you could also be doing, like with increased defense, increased strength. There's so much variance in the weapons that you just need to keep trying them out.
Some of them are buffs and some of them are very specific, which is why you need to try them on actual enemies. So if you go out of your way to find a nice little area that you're comfortable with and try them out, just to give you a particular example, the Scythe has a move which goes for the enemy's head. Headshots actually count in this game, so it does a damage multiplier. It says it in the item description, but it's not as clear as to how much extra damage it does. So with a bit of skill and a bit of practice, you can get a lot of easy kills that way. You could go around just Grim Reaping.
Literally like
Grim
cutting them off.
people. Yeah, it's great. And some things like, for example, the ones that increase poise. People might not know what poise is, but that's the stat that sort of means that when you get hit, you don't react to the hits as much. You don't fall over.
Guess armor in a sense. Like super fighting games, you have the armor to
like super armor, Zangief.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So these sorts of things you really need to experiment with. So after you've gone around and you found all of them, try them on actual enemies. I guess sort of a good way to do that is find your little spot and then try running with it for a little while. The numbers that you see on the screen don't necessarily equal all that a weapon can do. The scimitar, for example, when you heavy attack, you can actually backflip out of it. And that's a really cool thing to do. But it only works when you're locked on. It doesn't work when you're just doing it in the middle of nowhere. So I guess the next sort of tip you can take from all this, after you've gone through and you've played around with all your weapons and stuff, is bows.
Bows.
There's a bow in the early area.
Bow in the early area. And
Yeah.
compared to Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2, they are so much more useful. Their increased damage and added weapon skills change everything. From your longbows, which basically give armor like penetration,
Yep.
and even shield penetration sometimes, to your short bows, which give rapid,
Rapid fire.
So that
And dodge fire, which is
and
so
dodge
handy.
fire.
So you can dodge around an enemy and just flick an arrow back at him. So you can actually get in the fight sometimes, even if you have enemies come up from behind.
Yep.
If you lock on, you get a whole different move set. So arrows really obviously come in handy. I mean, in Dark Souls 1, you used it to shoot the Drake's tail off and it gave you a cool weapon. In a lot of cases after that, people then used it just to snipe enemies. And you can really get away with a lot in Dark Souls 3 just because you're not sitting there for half an hour firing arrows at them, because they do good damage and headshots count.
The other thing with the arrows, you can have 2 slots of arrows, so you can actually fire
Yep.
from one type of a normal arrow shot. If you actually even got like a different special arrow that you don't want to actually, I guess, use a lot of the time, but you want to keep
The one
for
you
a
save for the boss fight.
special boss
Yeah.
fight or something like that. You can put them to like either R1 or R2, so you can always change them on the fly. It's
Yep.
a really handy thing that they've done. It changed a lot of things for bows and just made them a lot stronger.
And speaking of bows, crossbows as well have changed a bit. So if you give them a try, a lot of people didn't like the fact that when you fired an arrow, it automatically knocked the next one, which meant you're standing there exposed for a while. In this game, they've changed it so it's a manual process. You have to knock an arrow, then fire it. So it means that you can have one locked and ready to go, switch weapons and switch back. It'll still say knocked. So you can fire it as
Where
sort of
you
like
go.
your secondary,
Yeah.
almost like you did in Bloodborne. It does have a similar effect as it does in Bloodborne. And you'll find that a lot of the, I guess a lot of the thing that you take advantage of early game is the fact that a lot of the enemies don't have very much poise. So they do get knocked down quite easily, and even arrows do it. So you can fire an arrow, switch weapons, and go hit them with a hammer. It's great. And I guess next, once you've gone ahead and you've played with all the weapons, a lot of people do like to start off with a magic class, which is where the ESTUS Flask comes in. So new to this game is the Ashen ESTUS Flask, which is the blue ESTUS Flask. And when you start, you have 3 regular ESTUS Flasks, which just heals your life. And you get 1 Ashen ESTUS Flask, which actually heals the blue bar, which is what you use for your weapon skills
magic.
and your magic.
Yep.
So the thing that most people don't really get the first time you play is you can allot those. So you can set to have 4 just healing ones or 4 just magic ones and anything in between. And when you get ESTUS Flask shards, you actually increase the total pool that you can draw from. So if you're a magic user, maybe you want a couple more Ashen ESTUS Flasks to heal yourself up or fire more soul arrows. Or you just want to have full
health.
healing ones because it's faster to heal than it is to use a magic heal, and you're going up against the boss.
That, or if you're just a melee class and you just want to go
You don't even need it.
Just
Yeah.
go, you know.
But you do lose the chance to fill up the blue bar again, which is what you use for weapon skills. So there's a good balance, and you can tailor it to how you want to play.
And with tailoring how you want to play, the, I guess, last and I guess most important,
Yeah.
especially for different type of players, is playing with different classes. There's, 9 or 10 classes I think you can start with.
Yeah, one of them being useless.
One of them being, I guess, useless.
Yeah, the one that's naked with the board and the club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just trying all of them out is just a nice way to see which one you
Yep.
favor, because with, I guess, the old ones, a lot of them used to be not as good as the others, especially...
Yeah, it was just a good base.
Yeah.
It was like, if I wanted to play a particular kind of class, I would pick the class sort of, like certain classes had more faith than attack strengths, like strength or dexterity or something like that. So you would just sort of pick one based on where you wanted to go. Whereas with Dark Souls 3, it does give you a lot of equipment that you can utilize straight away.
Yeah. So I guess it helps you with that early game, changing what you actually want to do with that character from early game. That said, because there is actually a lot of items to get early game,
and spells
even too,
Yeah.
you can actually change a lot of your class along the way. that doesn't really help well with late game because you actually want to specify into one type of class.
Yeah.
But even just having like one class just to try out your early game, then changing to another class thinking that, okay, I want to go this route to see how I can go here.
Yep.
And then maybe even going, all right, let's go try a pyromancer and try flaming everybody because maybe ice is weak to fire. Wait, it's not, but let's not go there.
So ultimately, if you're having trouble with the first boss, maybe that's a good point to go, all right, I'll try another class. I started out with a Herald, which had Heal Aid, which doesn't heal for very much health, whereas the Cleric had a full heal, which does an amazing amount of health. Yeah. And the stats that it had also meant that I could buy Heal Aid if I wanted to and have a very quick heal that did more than what my Herald did.
Yeah.
However, my Herald had a good setup where it had a shield and a spear, meaning I could hide behind the shield, which was 100% block shield, so no block damage, and poke everyone with the spear. It was funny.
There's so many different ways to play. It's just a good way just to experiment with what you like, because in this game, there is so many different play styles that you're not going to like some of them, and you're going to have fun with a lot of other ones.
Yep.
So I guess the best way is just to try it. That's trying, I guess, what basically we're coming from this. If you are new to this game, just try everything.
Yep.
Because there is so much to try in this game. There's so much depth to it that you're going to be having fun.
Definitely.
Rhubarb, 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 rhubarb.